Okay, you need to separate.
What the heck was that?
You guys.
Ever pranked your teacher so hard they got angry? Today's video is all about the students who had the guts to mess around with teachers.
Sorry, I'm not gonna lie, my spider senses are tingling. I'm learning. You know, I gotta be Peter Parker too.
Some of these cases are pretty harmless, while a couple might leave you gasping in shock.
I need more power! I think it's ready!
Get out! Stay out! Get up!
So sit back and enjoy the clips. Let's get started. The noisy trail. A bunch of students hired a bagpiper to follow around the principal all day. The school was so confused by all the noise that they all walked out of the classrooms. But when they saw what was happening, they couldn't stop laughing. The Royal Rumble. I bet a lot of you can't say you had that with your teacher. Maybe a potential wrestling match, but not a drum battle. The duo had planned this out for the whole school to see. The teacher had no clue what he was up against, and he was pleasantly surprised to find the boy giving him a challenge. Distressing for finals. This teacher was busy giving instructions to students on exam day, having no clue what was about to hit him. The teacher sat down on his chair when a loud alarm echoed in the classroom, startling the poor teacher. He got up and looked at the chair to find an evil air horn hidden. The man took it like a pro, though, laughing it off. The Spidey Sense. A trio sitting inside the classroom. After a while, they started putting on their Spider-Man costume. The students were trying to control their laughter as they pulled out their phones. The teacher was too amused to even complain. But the real magic started when the villain entered the room. The Spider-Man trio chased the villain, but ended up getting beaten. The call for Iron Man was made, and the characters were off and away. Yeah, I don't think he's coming to pull off this prank. The Earful. This pesky student was at the end of a substitute teacher's scolding, and he made it worse. The teacher was absolutely pissed at this student. He came racing towards him and started yelling at him, but the student kept making snarky comments and laughing at his face. The teacher was ready to give up. He ordered him to get out of the classroom.
Get out! Stay out! Get out!
But the student didn't budge. The teacher gave the student a death stare and left the classroom. Dragon's Ball Z style. This group wanted to prank the lecturer, and a random student ended up getting into the mix of it. A bunch of characters dressed as Dragon Ball Z entered the classroom, ready to perform their favorite scene from the show. All eyes were on the characters, and the spirit bomb was ready to be thrown into a loud applause. But things didn't quite go to plan. The spirit bomb ended up hitting a student's laptop, almost breaking it. The crowd let out a gasp, but the pranksters didn't break their characters. They went on with their act and moved on. The Mariachi Band. These students had planned a whole performance in the middle of the class. Imagine watching an unplanned duel in your class. Now that's the kind of surprise you'd like. The teacher looked back at the theatrics with visible amusement on his face, but didn't interrupt the kids or their performances. The battle ended, forcing the teacher and the students to erupt into loud applause. But here is where it got pretty badass. The Z that Zorro had signed on the board, the teacher turned it into a chemistry joke. He probably wanted to remind the class they still had a lecture to attend. I'm sure the class knows, Professor. The flash mob. This class was not in for some lousy prank. Instead, they wanted to break out into a flash mob right in the middle of class. The teacher had ended the lecture at one point. One of the students started humming by posing to ask a question. The teacher instantly realized what was going on. She broke into a fit of laughter as one or more students joined in on the singing. Then, the whole class stood up and performed the perfect choreographed dance in front of their teacher. They didn't break out of character once. Kudos to them, otherwise, the title of this prank could have easily been Prank Gone Wrong.
People,
a bad dream. The whole group of students casually walked inside the closet and tried to fit in the cramped space. There was not a single peep or noise out of the giggling students when the professor walked inside the classroom. The man walked out looking like a lost puppy. The students scurried out of the closet and got back to their seats, laughing loudly. This group of giggling students somehow managed to keep it quiet in the closet. A while later, the professor walked back into the classroom to find the whole crowd there, laughing at him. The man claimed it was the best thing that had happened to him in his whole career. A stressful class. This teacher is probably going to quit after having gone through this prank. Two guys had started a fight in the classroom, calling out nasty things to each other. The teacher decided to step in and split the two apart. It didn't work for long, and the teacher was pretty stressed out by now. He gave them a final warning and kicked one of the students out. As he was leaving, he smacked at the back of the head of his enemy and fled the scene. The crowd let out an audible gasp, and the teacher sprinted after the student in superhero mode. The poor guy will have a rough day finding out it was all a prank. The Mariachi Surprise. Senior pranks keep the school on the toes of its feet throughout the whole year, but this one was simply delightful. This group hired a mariachi band to surprise their teacher. They called him to the corridor, and his reaction was priceless after seeing the band play the melodious tune on their instruments. The man was so happy that he gave the whole band a tour of the school. Isn't that just plain wholesome? The solo parade. A student with a pair of funky glasses walked into the confused classroom and started playing his trumpet. The teacher yelled at the student to get out, but he wasn't done just yet. After a few minutes, the boy sneaks back into the room. He started playing a tune, while the students stifled their laughter. The teacher was startled to find the same chaotic boy standing there with his dumb trumpet. The boy kept up with the solo parade until he was shoved out of the classroom. But this time, the teacher hung back with him, probably to play him a different kind of tune. The bad smell. A boy thought of doing the most harmless prank ever. Too bad the students didn't think the same. This guy brought in a fart spray and spread a few rotten smells around the room. The smell was so bad that within seconds, kids started to get uncomfortable. A few of them pulled their shirts up, while one guy just straight up opened the window. The boy sprayed some more, only for the crowd to get all whiny. At this point, the students weren't just complaining. They were ready to call out the culprit. He is lucky no one saw him. The motivational speech.
I'm a little sick and tired of what you've got to say about this, okay? You showed all this time. You have no clue what's going on here.
A student was giving quite the attitude to this teacher who just wanted to inspire the kid. It is unclear how the argument started, but it went on for a long time. Maybe it was the kid's secret mission to waste time in class, because even after the harsh words, he didn't back down. The student kept piping into the argument with a word here and a provoking sentence there. Even though the teacher was pretty disappointed and displeased, he didn't take it personally. The man just gave the kid a reality check and moved on. The iPad crisis. This poor teacher was simply trying to teach when a bunch of troublemakers made him all huffed up. The mumble jumble was picked up when he noticed the iPad being used to create a nuisance in his lecture. The students were both thrown out of the room, but not without making the teacher all angry. Cook off.
I got eggs, I got bacon, I got sour. If you need it, let me know, bro.
This man's plan was simple. Go inside the classroom and pull off the most obvious prank to get the room's undivided attention. He passed with flying colors. He took out a waffle maker and cooked an egg while shouting out the lyrics to a song. He even had the audacity to call out other students and ask them if they wanted breakfast. The teacher looked so helpless that he eventually sat down to steer clear of the drama. But the prankster wasn't going to let him sneak away. He walked up to him and offered him a bit of his eggs. He ended up liking it. Now that's something. Disrespect calls for punches. A student had started calling out racial slurs to the teacher. He kept listening, but didn't say anything. That's when the boy saw that the teacher wasn't getting triggered. He picked up a basketball and threw it at the music teacher. The man didn't hold himself down then. He threw a punch right across the kid's face, giving him exactly what he wanted, undivided attention. The kid scrambled away in panic, ducking down to protect himself. What's surprising is that most of the class sided up with the music teacher. Up, up, and away. In the middle of the lecture, this guy stood up and pretended to attend a call in a loud voice. Then, something pretty cool happened. The guy tore apart his shirt to reveal the Superman outfit inside as the class erupted into a roar of laughter. The boy raced down the stairs, but his superhero charm hit a halt. He tried to get out of the wrong door. His hilarious stunt didn't get him kicked out of the class, though. The professor looked pretty amused.
How's it going, Patricia?
What is going on with you?
This young man thought it would be fun to go around and call out teachers by their first names. Some of the teachers passed the vibe check. A few of them smiled back at the sudden surprise. Some of them were too confused to say anything, but it is safe to say most of them were just happy with the prank. It was probably this guy's last day at school, which is why he was getting away with it. Would you pull off a stunt like this? The Russian prank. The Russians have a special way of doing everything, and most of those methods are brutal. This prank doesn't look very pleasant either. A bunch of students dressed head to toe in the attire of soldiers. They had fake guns ready, and the group hid behind the door to sneak in and scare the students and the teacher. Sadly, that's where the footage cut off, but I doubt it ended well for these folks. The music juice. This teacher sat down, and that's when strange music started playing in the classroom. He looked taken aback and thought that it was his fault. He was hella confused when he turned the laptop off and the music was still on. Then he started plugging out a couple of wires, but that didn't do any good. How could it? The students had set up a Bluetooth speaker and were controlling the music. The teacher asked them if that was the case, and the class erupted into a fit of laughter. Morning breakfast. A group of students were so keen on making a mark in school that they ended up giving the best senior prank to their principal. The boys camped out in the front garden of their principal's house. They had to keep extra quiet so they could spend the night and give the man a surprise in the morning. The boys woke up early in the morning, pulled the grill out, and started cooking breakfast. The principal still had no clue, so they gave him a taste of his own medicine and pulled out the loudspeaker. The man came out all happy and astonished at what his students had done for him. The Racketeer. Programming class was underway when a young man thought it would be a good idea to bring his typewriter to the classroom, and he took his sweet time setting up the machine too. When the machine started making loud sounds, a lot of heads started turning. The poor teacher had no clue what was going on, but he wanted it to stop. The teacher wasn't pleased, and the boy had it with the lecture too. He picked up his briefcase and walked out of the lecture, unfazed. On a Goose Chase. The lecture was in full swing when one of the professors found himself at the butt of this prank. Out of nowhere, Joker entered the classroom in his despicable attire. Seconds later, Batman joined in and started chasing his nemesis. The two sprinted into a run, closing in through the gaps and crooks of the classroom. Then they got up on stage, almost ready to get into a brawl. But then, suddenly, Pikachu entered the chat. If that wasn't bizarre enough, Batman and Joker started doing push-ups while Pikachu just sort of danced around. The professor took it lightly too, but he was probably left questioning his career. Riled up frustration. This teacher had it to the brim with his patience, and his students weren't helping to tone it down. He was seated at his desk when the class started laughing and talking loudly. First, he only gave them a warning, but when the noise didn't stop, he got all angry and started yelling.
All the jobs I could pick. I don't want to go to work where I have to do this nonsense all the time.
A group of other students started whistling and laughing while one goody-good was trying to apologize to the teacher, but his efforts to bring the class to normal went in vain. The teacher then stood up and went on a flashy rant about his job and the noisy students. Poor lad probably had a rough day. Have chips. This guy dressed up as a food vendor and casually walked inside a classroom handing out free chips. Would you look at the teacher's reaction? He looks too tired to even say anything, but he's definitely not pleased. The guy asked if he was in the right classroom and then ended up taking the chips back and running away. Not cool, man. Should have let the kids have the free food. Fight, fight, fight. This couple of guys thought it would be cool to stir up the cafeteria with a fake fight. One of them pretended to start a brawl with a guy sitting peacefully at the table. Pretty quickly, the trash talk turned into a physical fight, forcing the students to take out their cameras and enjoy the brawl. But as soon as the teachers came, the boys broke free and started laughing. The security guy doesn't look happy. He doesn't get paid enough for this job. All jumbled up. The physics teacher was coming in after a long break. He had no clue who anybody was in the classroom. The plan was to add students from the AP class whose names weren't on the name sheet. The physics teacher started to get a bit flustered, seeing the crowded room. After spending 40 minutes trying to sort out the matter, he went to another teacher for help. That didn't work out either. So he just sat there in despair until the AP teacher arrived and told him about the prank. The man looked like he needed another break. The booked parking slot. This man wanted to pull off a memorable senior prank, and his plan wasn't shy of making that happen. He brought a front-end loader to school and drove it in the middle of the school's parking lot. The school was pretty amused by the prank. The principal even got a picture with the student. But the prank cost him 3 parking tickets because he had used 3 extra parking spaces and had the permit for a different car. That may be bad news, but I doubt he will remember it that way. First name April. This girl was answering her phone on speaker as per class policy, but it became a case of second-hand embarrassment when it was stated that the girl was pregnant. The teacher instantly apologized to the girl. She played along and then went on to say her baby's first name would be April and her last name would be Fools. That's when it hit him. He couldn't believe his policy would come back and bite him like this. The Unwanted DoorDash. This man dressed up as a delivery guy and stated that he had an order. He kept asking the professors if they were the ones who ordered it. You can imagine how that went down. They told him to leave, but the man didn't budge. The students were rolling on the floor laughing, trying their best to hold in the giggles. So the professors decided to call security, forcing the man to scurry away. He left with a round of applause, but the teachers weren't very pleased. Here is the funny bit. Nobody in the class told the officers what the prankster looked like, making it easier for him to flee. Time for a game. A bunch of students dressed up as the Mario Kart characters and barged inside the classroom. They sprinted at a fast pace and raided the stage. The characters trailed behind each other, doing a couple of rounds around the room and throwing things at each other. Within seconds they were out, and the teacher couldn't wipe the smile off her face. She was visibly amused. That's all, folks. These were the students who gave a pretty hard time to the teachers. While some of them took it well, others weren't so pleased with their behavior. Which one was your favorite? Let us know in the comments. Do share with us an interesting story from your school when you prank your teacher. Let us know how it turned out for you. If you liked this video, hit the thumbs up icon and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We have a lot in store for you. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching.